Croeso and welcome to Tales for Wales, the pod that never fails to fortify your knowledge of history with the strong stone walls of the past, to climb the battlements of the hidden fortress of Wales and say, please Lord, may I have some more? I'm Jack, and as usual I'm joined by Franks, and the reason he's not laughing that much this time at the intro is because we did it already and we had to redo it, okay? It had a rapturous applause the first time.
I gave you
I gave you the fucking pathetic snigger just to like appease my ego a little bit.
Yeah. But that's the thing, man. We can't be fake on this pod. We're the real deal, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't hide behind our ears and graces, does we?
No, but you missed out the old castle crashes this time as well.
Oh yeah, true. And then your assumption that it was a euphemism for being gay.
Yeah, Jack said, yeah. I'm joined by my regular castle crasher, and it sounds like a euphemism for buggery. So that was just all the behind the scenes.
That's what they come for, these sorts of insights, isn't it?
Yeah. We have a laugh, don't we? How are you, mate? You're right.
I'm good, man. Good. I've just been doing my walking on my little treadmill. I'm sweaty as fuck. Sat here. Sorry, ladies. Sat here topless. Recording.
Wow.
Stinking up the room, sweating, steaming, you know?
Well, I was just at the gym myself, you know, and I was talking to my friends about the playlist we have on, and she has very cool, like, electronic dance music. And I had a song called "It's Gonna Be Okay," and it's just like a really blatant transfer of the difference.
You know what really gets me pumped? Affirmations. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What's your step thingy then? So you're back on that? Is it? I thought you were.
I never stop, mate.
You never stop,
get me off that damn treadmill. You know, I always do like about an hour and a half in the mornings while I'm playing PlayStation.
So good, man. What do you play at the moment when you're playing it?
Oh, I'm doing a classic Warhammer 40k game. I got that one that's basically XCOM, but Warhammer, and I fucking love it. It's great. But I think the annoying thing about the human body, you start doing exercising regularly, and then the bar shifts, and your body's like, that don't do shit anymore, mate. You're going to have to up it or do nothing. Yeah. So now it's like I'm locked in the cycle of doing these like 10,000 steps in the morning, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything for me.
That's
it's
crackers. You do 10k just before you even start the day. But then
it's about 8 or 9 usually.
Yeah. But then are you hunkered down for the whole day then?
No, well, I walk the dog then to top it up to the 10.
Trousers. That's pretty good going. I do about 10k, but that's because I'm massively forcing myself. Because there was a period about a year ago where I was maxing out at 3k. I was doing fuck all when it came to steps.
Just pat yourself on the back for it.
Oh, well done. You got up to go Tesco's, get some pop. Oh, how lovely. But we're on our big holiday in a few days' time, aren't we?
Oh, I can't wait, mate. That's another reason I'm like, just keep to it, because it's going to be a fucking assault on the system.
Yeah. Where are we going?
So.
Mallorca, baby. Mallorca. I keep calling it Malaga. Is that the same place or a different place?
I have no idea, mate.
No
I don't
idea.
care.
It was all foreign to us, isn't it, mate?
It's a grotty hotel with an all-inclusive with our name on it. That's all I know.
So we're all-inclusive. I'm going for 3 days. You're going for 4 days, aren't you? With because you're made up.
Well, 4 nights.
Stuff. 4 nights.
4 nights. No, sorry, we're doing 3 nights. We're doing 2 nights, isn't it?
Yeah. 3 days and 4 days. That's what I just said.
Exactly. I don't count the last one because that's going to be like a shell of my former self.
Yeah.
I know, look at us bickering now. Am I going to be like after the end of the holiday, like, see you, mate, you fuck off.
Fuck off, wicked. You tired? You nervous? You excited?
I am tired, but I'm always tired. I'm tired.
You sound
since
a bit
my
tired
fucking mid-20s, mate. I woke up at like 5 and couldn't get back to sleep. And then I just thought, oh, fuck it, I'll get up, walk the dog and everything. And now I'm a tired boy by half 8. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Disgusting. Well, shall we revive you with some brilliant history? Or do you have a funny anecdote for us? Or is that a bit too much to ask a tired lad? Also, this is probably our second last sober episode, isn't it? We're doing another sober one tomorrow. Yes. But then you sounded so excited then.
Well, so if you're sick to death of us being sober Sallies and doing these at lunch, or God forbid, like this one in the morning,
in the AM,
don't worry, we'll be back to normal broadcasting procedure then. Not this one, not the next one, the one after. Something to look forward to.
Yeah. Then because we're doing we're back to evening records for a little bit, because I was trying to ease up on the booze, and I've eased up now, so I'm allowed to go back to the booze.
I've eased up on the easing up, and now I can get back to it. Yeah. I did have a little story. Here's my very smooth segue. Basically, do you know when I hate the Instagram algorithm. I know this is very like 90s comedy. You ever been on Instagram with the algorithm?
What's the deal with the algorithm?
What's the deal with the algorithm, right? But really, what is the deal with it? Because I can watch things again and again and again, and then it'll start slowly going, okay, I think you like these things. Basically, history stuff, Welsh stuff, whatever.
Occasional
and then
boobs.
One thing popped up, the occasional tit or two. And then something popped up. It was like this AI-generated like CGI cat animation, and it was a pregnant cat being like abused. Like they're like anthropomorphized. They're like humans, but with cat faces and fur and everything. And it was this pregnant cat, and she was getting battered by I'm assuming her husband cat. Like it smacked around a bit, and then it's like her attempting to leave, him attempting to kill them, and then she gives birth.
Fuck?
And then like a handsome, like really hench, like impossibly hench other Chad cat comes along and like saves her. And I was watching this all the way through, just absolutely perplexed. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Guess what? A few scrolls later, they're dishing me out another one and another one. So now I've got to instantly get off these mad things. And on the I looked at the comments again, stupidly engaged with it. And it was like, why is she always pregnant? And it's like, A, someone's watched these enough that there's like, they've noticed the consistency.
They've looked at the law.
And then felt the need to comment. So I'm going, what's the law behind the pregnant cat then? I don't get it. And I just thought, Instagram, why have you served me up this bullshit? Have I ever indicated before I want to watch AI pregnant cat videos? I don't think so.
I have a really lovely friend in work. She's our age, but fuck me, she is always duped by AI. Like, she'll send me the shittest AI memes as well. Charles, if you're listening, I do apologise, but she sends me, it has to stop. They are so bad. She'll send me them, and it's like, it'll be like, like a fake interview with someone from Britain saying, I think Keir Starmer should get into a bin, and then they turn into a bin, and it's like pure boomer humour. But she sent me one yesterday where it was a fat guy.
I thought you were going to say like you turn into a bin, and she's like, how'd they do it? How did they transform into a bin?
So that's the AI humour she enjoys and finds funny, which is backwards. And then she sends me videos where she sent me a video of a fat person being arrested, like hands behind his back by the staff at an all you can eat, and it's them saying, I thought this is all you can eat, and it says, yes, it's all you can eat, been here for 5 hours, and they speak really fast, like, classic AI does. It's uncanny. And she thought that was real, and I was like, you know that's AI. She was like, it's not AI. And I was like, listen to how they speak. And she was like, oh yeah, it's getting so clever these days. I was like, no, we're getting collectively thicker. It's not that it just. And she's like, she's so lovely, and she's like 30, and she's pure Facebook boomered her algorithm.
She can't escape it now. The claws are in.
Yeah,
it's I saw something. My dad was down a few about a month ago or something like that. We went out for like a weekend sesh, as we normally do. I know, cry. Daddy wasn't there, and then
Daddy.
He's a big lover of Jaws, right? The film, a bit like our mate Sean.
Is that why you like Sean? Because he reminds you of your dad.
Yeah, Daddy. Do you want to watch Jaws, Daddy? But he showed me this picture. He went, "Oh, it was great." He said, "I saw this thing the other day. We were just talking about Jaws because it was the anniversary recently. I watched it recently, whatever." And then he said, "Oh, I found this on." He said, "Oh, let me try and find it for you now." He showed it to me, and it was like a selfie of what's his name, Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, Mark Drakeford,
like smiling. Mark Drakeford, Richard Dreyfuss. A selfie of him with Robert Shaw in the back being eaten by the shark, and it was like, oh, it's funny because he doesn't like him in the film and all that. And he said, oh, it's such a good photo, that, and it behind the scenes photo. And he's like really like pleased that he found that and made him really happy. And I had to break the news. I was like, Dad, that's AI. That's obviously AI.
Obviously,
I just said, Dad, how would he have taken a selfie? It was made in the 70s. And then he went, I just thought he had like a camera or one of the film cameras. I said, they were huge in the day. You couldn't just pick that up and do a selfie.
It's the critical thinking. It's like the lack of critical thinking.
How would he have got this? Why would they have made the animatronic shark eat Robert Shaw and put all that blood there for a selfie? That's a waste of money for the studio.
This is like the nerdy side of like my job, but I was doing this like presentation on the difference between, we used to be critical thinking. So do you know if you used to Google something, your mind would say, right, the first 3 are sponsored links, so I'm going to scroll past them.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm looking for. So that's what I used to be. So that was like our critical thinking side of being a consumer. And then Now lots of people just search ChatGPT and you have an anchored bias. You don't want loads of options. You want to say to ChatGPT, what is the best hairdryer? And it will just tell you like the things like that. Whereas before we used to go looking for it, and now you want it to be fed directly to you. And you just trust that the algorithm's going to be doing the research in the background. And I think that's like a mad step that we're going to face going forward. Like it's
absolutely a step back for humanity.
Yeah.
In that, like I said, my dad was stupid with that. Luckily, it was just a harmless fucking thing about Jaws
video.
But like,
it could have been video, immigrants
and imagine
and like,
just like how people. It's already happening. I think with people with like political stuff and whatnot. It's just it's a dark place.
I love when you say whatnot. It's your catch-all for when we talk about something serious. Whenever you go like politics and whatnot. My friend does it as well. I say friend.
Etc.
Yeah, my friend does it in work when and I mentioned it to him. He's like, "Yeah, it's my go-to when I actually don't have any other references." Like, so it's the metrics of whatnot.
Pull out another example out of the bag. Whatnot, just get the old whatnot out.
Mine is and so on, because I ran out of steam.
And so on,
and so forth. And now I like that part of language where we have our little like safety blankets on them. I'm so bad for them in work because I waffle an awful lot and I can tell I'm waffling. So then I always just do, and in a roundabout way, I say in a roundabout way so often when I know I've lost my trail.
You know what I'm absolutely criminal for in work, and I hate myself every time I do it. Every time I do it, I like chip away a little bit more of my soul. It's where I use like stupid fucking sayings to like illustrate what I'm saying. I go, if we do that, then we get a second bite of the cherry or something like that,
And a little bit of you dies every time. You're like, oh, I'm a corporate bastard.
I'm a corporate stooge. I've bowed down to the man again.
Anyway, talking of corporate stooges, we're going to talk about the De Barry family, who were a bunch of Normo Cymros. Cymru, Norman. I'll get to that in a second. They got a funny word for it. Yeah. Like Ray Romano British? They've got
Ray Romano British.
Yeah, they got one.
Normano Celt or something like that?
No,
Ray Normano?
Ray Normano. Cymru Normo Homo erectus. Anyway, we're doing a castle that's not really close to our hearts. Me and Jack both went to school in Barry and spent a lot of time there. And, the streets
not close to our hearts, but close to our school.
Close to our school. But Barry Castle was never really a thing to like. It was just, my mate lived right around the corner from it. Our mate Richard, he lived right around the corner. And like, I didn't even register that it was a castle ruins.
No, it has not been on my radar until I knew it kind of existed, but I've never ever thought, oh, what happened there type thing. It's one of those unsung castles.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little potted history of Barry Castle and those who set it up. So a quick overview. So Barry is in South Wales in the Vale of Glamorgan. Me and Jack grew up a lot around there. And it has a small medieval fortified manor. So it's a 2-story gatehouse and it has a whole range that still survived to today. But it was a fortified manor, so a glorified, so not really a proper castle.
I know what you mean. It's you got a load of those in Wales, haven't you? Where it's like something castle. You go there, it's actually like a posh house, isn't it? It's like quite it's got like good.
But I think this is slightly different to a posher house because it is made of stone and it was used to like defend the family. But it wasn't like a magnificent like Caerphilly Castle or one of those.
It's a bit of work, bit of pleasure, isn't it? Yeah.
That's one of your classic work corporate jargon speeches.
I know, yeah. It's work and pleasure, look.
Yeah. Anyway, it's founded by the Norman De Barry family. And there was originally an earlier earthwork to like establish that there was probably some sort of work there before the castle was built. But it was rebuilt in stone in the 13th and 14th century. And it was damaged during a few battles and a few civil unrests. So I'll go into all of that in a bit more deets. So the pre-Norman, so during the Romano-British roots, the site sits on a site with early occupation. Cadw note that a Romano-British farmstead traces beneath the medieval works, and it's the first medieval fortification on the site appears to be an earthwork of ringwork timber. So it's like right. It was likely built in the 12th century when the Normans established the Marshall Manors in Glamorgan. So it was kind of like, do you know in Braveheart they find the early castles, they attack all the wooden ones, the timber ones.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, before they didn't have the resources or technology or whatever to build the
and it's expensive to build the stone ones. So it's the ones where they first established their kind of Norman influence. So they set up these like timber castles. The castle takes its name from a nearby Barry Island named after St. Barrick and the de Barry family. So people often kind of quote the two for why it's called Barry Island. One, or just Barry in general. The de Barry are this Norman family who set up and established a lot of the castles and the feudal system and the control from like the 10th to the 14th century. But also St. Barrick was the saint who lived on Barry Island and was a very holy man. So the two kind of cross over.
The two people vying for the throne of the name as a Barry.
Yeah. And I'll talk also about like some of the people who come from de Barry family, not necessarily from Barry itself, but de Barry, the lineage.
De Barry is funny. It just sounds like you're, I don't know, like saying it wrong or something. Like you don't know what it's actually called. We're going to de Barry later, and we're going to Barry, is it?
So a little bit of the timeline in terms of the castle. So the 12th to 13th century, like I said, it was timber, earthwork, ringwork, and that was replaced and overlain in stone in the 1200s. And then by the late 13th century, there were stone buildings forming on the east and west ranges. And then its high point, which is like the early 14th century, the surviving south hall and the two-story gatehouse were added, and architectural clues are still visible today. So there's like a gated arch, there's grooves indicating a portcullis and a footprint on the first floor with a fireplace. They all point to it being like a fortified manorial house. So like you said earlier, fun. What do you say? Half pleasure, half... What was it?
Half pleasure, half work, half pleasure.
Yeah. Well, my notes I've written down, it's like domestic comfort combined with defensive features. So it's like
just a fancy way of saying what I just said. Half work, half pleasure.
So it's like a manor house fortress rather than a concentric like military castle like Caerphilly. So the reason it got funded and all this is because the de Barry family were a noble Cambro-Norman family which had held extensive lands in Wales and Ireland. The founder of the de Barry family...
Cambro-Norman, is that what you're trying to say?
That's the one I was trying to say earlier. Cambro-Norman. The de Barry family was a Norman knight, or Odo, who assisted the Norman conquest of England and southwest Wales in the 11th century. He was really important to William the Conqueror, and he got given loads of land. And I got a little bit lost when I was doing the research because there is another de Barry, but spelt de Bay, or pronounced like it's pronounced de Bay, but often said Barry, and it's the guy who inspired or paid for the Bayer tapestry. And I was like, shit, did a guy from Barry pay for the Bayer tapestry? But it wasn't.
Some scrote from Barry Island knitted the tapestry himself.
Yeah. But due to his loyalty and his servitude and his hard work, he was rewarded for his military services, and Odo was granted estates in Pembrokeshire and around Barry, South Wales, including Barry Island.
If you became king, how much land would you give me?
A really insulting amount. I'd give you like
a funny amount, like not nothing.
What's funnier, 0 bonus or £100 bonus?
Pitiful bonus.
No, I'd give you say
probably give me like a plot of land that could fit like a shed on it. I'd be like, that's yours forever, mate.
You could have St. Athan, but you have to fund it yourself.
Whip that place into shape.
You could be as crude as you wanted. Get back at the bully boys who are mean to you.
I think you know me quite well. You'd have to give me not too much land, not that it would go to my head, because if you give me too much, I think I would get drunk on power.
Give me any, I'd
probably get drunk on power.
I think you just get drunk. You'd just be an absolute...
I'd be like, make a tavern in this place and supply me with ale.
But one of the offshoots from his family, from the de Barry family, from Odo, was Gerald of Wales, Gerald of Wales. The guy who wrote down everything, and he was a chronicler. I think that's the word, a chronologizer.
Chronicle de Cambris or something was it that he made? I can't remember what it's called now, but we get a lot of our notes from him, don't we?
Yeah, so he's one of the most extensive writers and travellers of Wales from like the medieval period. He went all over, and he wrote down like history, the lineage, famous battles, culture. He was Norman and Welsh, and by this time there was less kind of animosity between them because he was a few generations down, and he considered himself very much Welsh and Norman, and he was kind of accepted into lots of royal dynastic families. So he went around North Wales, around Gwynedd, and all around just kept capturing stories. And he's probably one of the most important figures in Welsh history.
Yeah, it's a bit like if you were a world-class bard, isn't it? You get invited to courts all over the place. Like, you're welcome in these like huge families and things, because he would have been a writer of renown, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he went to places like Rome and met the Pope and all that malarkey. Like, he was he was a big old deal.
They love it when you meet the Pope back then, don't they? They love that shit.
They do. They love that shenanigans. But yeah, so he came from this lineage. He was a member of the de Barry family. He was the same Norman Welsh lineage that owned Barry Castle. But he was born in Pembrokeshire. So he was one of Odo's descendants called William de Barry, who settled in Pembrokeshire. And that's the branch that produced Gerald of Wales. John de Barry, he was important locally. He was recorded as expanding and repairing the site of the early 14th century, and later being embroiled in a baronial politics of the 1320s, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But he was an important guy. So during like the height of the castle, its pomp, he did a lot of expanding it. But he gets into some shenanigans, which I'll talk about in a bit. So there's some overlords and neighbouring lords. So the de Barrys held Barry under regional overlords. So the Marshall power was like a network with links with like some other famous families, like this family, the Penmarks, the St. Johns, and they're all roughly in the same area.
I always forget that, like, the Marshlands, because I always when I think of them, I know they're all across the border, but I always think of them as more like mid and north.
Yeah,
I always seem to forget that they were like right down south of us as well.
Yeah,
like,
they come down really south.
We grew up.
Yeah. So yeah, there was lots of Marshlands down by here, all the way down to like Ogmore and down past the Vale. But then that's all the boring stuff done. That's all the who's this, who's that. Now it's the fun part, the fighting, the unrest, and the political events that affected the castle. So in terms of Welsh resistance, Llywelyn Bryn, one of our favourite revolters,
our boy Bryn,
probably one of the most overlooked but really important, because he was one of the butterfly wings that brought down Edward II.
Indeed.
So what happened with him? Llywelyn Bryn, he was a Welsh lord who led a serious revolt in Glamorgan in 1316 against the English officials and royal misgovernment. The uprising swept through the Vale and attacked several marcher seats. So in Barry, there's lots of sources from like Cadw and places like that report that the Barry Castle was attacked and severely damaged during the unrest. Its castle has been recorded as suffering damage and then being repaired at quite a costly fee. Plus, there was found where there was bones and weapons and arrowheads and stuff found to imply that there was quite a bit of death around the castle as well from this uprising. So that there was in 1316.
So we can infer from the evidence that there was some sort of scrap.
Yes, there was.
Good to know.
And it was recorded then that there's a sort of clear example of like a localized rebellion due to like the physical destruction of the manor house and all the shrapnel and the shenanigans that surrounded it. Sorry, me and you are tired today. I think that's really coming across.
It's all good, mate. Don't worry.
And then, so that a little bit later on from this, so just after this uprising, you then get the baronial and dispenser politics.
Baronial. Just name drop.
Yeah.
It was a purposeful thing. You did it as a pun. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, you might remember when we did the Llywelyn Bryn episode, we discussed Hugh Despenser the Younger and his he was like vicious extension of power in South Wales that sparked like a baronial
We would
reaction.
quite like to have dispensed with Despenser, am I right?
So Roger Mortimer and some of the other big bosses led oppositions against him, and many local knights and lords were drawn into politics and some rebelled. So I'm going to talk a little bit about then John de Barry and his role. I mentioned earlier that he was the person who put quite a lot of money into the castle, and obviously it got quite badly damaged during the revolt of Llywelyn. But as a result of some of the mismanagement from Edward II, he ended up joining the baronial opposition and went against Edward II. Might be because he felt he wasn't really looked after enough when this uprising happened, or just in general there was a real discontent against Hugh Despenser. So anyway, as a result, he had to forfeit his lands legally because he joined the revolt against the royal crown. And it wasn't until 1327, after Edward II was either killed or he lost his seat. People think he was stabbed in prison, but we don't exactly know how he died. But once he fell and Edward III's government came in, they reversed many of these forfeitures. So he had to give up his land for nearly 6 years legally. But then that was reversed at the end, and
he got it back in the end. He got his reward for being
but
he
probably wasn't that great a person because he was also against
I imagine not.
Brain. But anyway,
I think that could probably apply to a lot of people we talk about on this that we love. There's probably some of them, they seem quite virtuous and good, but a lot of them are like, oh, they're so sick, and they're like, oh, actually, if you dig into what they've done in their personal lives, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah. And then later conflict, so during the English Civil War, which affected Wales, Ireland and Scotland, so I don't like to say it's an English Civil War. There's no strong evidence to suggest it was an active Civil War post, but it is plausible due to where it sits and the fact that St Fagans, the biggest battle that happened in Wales on Welsh soil, happened not too far around the corner. So they often think that there most likely a garrison there, but no firm evidence.
I think as well in any sort of wide scale battle or war like that, you'd pick anything that is remotely fortified. You chuck a couple of people in there, wouldn't you, or use that as at least a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. So I'd be surprised if it was never used for anything like that.
But it's a small little place, a small little castle that even though you could drive past it, it's opposite a co-op or something. I can't remember what's opposite it now. And it looks really conspicuous. You would never really stop and go, oh, hang on, look at that castle there. It just looks like a bunch of stones or fallen down ruins. And it's got nearly 1,000 years of history behind it, and that's the story of Wales, isn't it? All over this country, I was
going to say we're quite spoiled in Wales like that, because obviously you get the big hitters, Cardiff Castle, you can't miss it. There's a big fanfare made of that. But like you said, these little fortified manor houses, like you said, or even actual castles that have just sort of fallen into ruin a bit, but you can still see them, that old remnants of turrets and things like that. They're just it's just on there down the beach, or just down there, no one really, and no one, locals don't bother looking at them, do they? In Llantuit, I grew up just up from Llantuit. There's 2 castles down there, proper fortified buildings. They're falling apart by now, but they're just in a field somewhere, and anyone can go see them. And I've never been to see them.
Yeah,
they're almost people just don't bother even talking about them.
No, and if you do look at Barry Castle, you can tell it was a castle, but it's just so inconspicuously placed next to buildings that are around someone's house is adjacent to it, and you just don't really, I don't know, it feels
I looked at pictures just then when you were talking, and it's it really ruins the aesthetic, the ones that are wide angle, because you see just a modern house next to it. It's cut that out, crop it out.
It's just bizarre, isn't it? But it's kind of why we love talking about the history of this country, that there was literally a rebellion, a revolt, there was an attack on that hill there, and then and now people just get fingered and drink cans in there. It's just it's an absolute
that's
joy.
Official. That was on Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's on Wiki. Sorry, this episode's a bit low energy. We'll be back tomorrow with a much better one, I promise. Diolch o Granda, don't review this one. Just get out of here whilst you can.
Yeah, wait for the next one or the last one. Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.